hello. Thank you so much for being on the Be Love podcast.
Thank you so much, Sage. It's really great to be here.
But it's great to have you here. It's been so fun to collaborate with you on all things Helen Keller. And this podcast is in some ways motivated by her. The church is where love is moving in the world. And this is just an opportunity to hear a bit of your story, how love is calling you, how love is moving through your life as the dean of the Center for Swedenborgian Studies, as a mom, as a woman, as a human. Where might you want to jump in to answer those myriad questions in our conversation today?
Yeah, big, wide questions.
Yes, that's my specialty.
Yeah, well, as we talked a little bit about leading up to this, I've been thinking a lot about the second half of life because I'll be turning 50 in a couple months. And I've been thinking about narratives, stories that we tell in our Swedenborgian tradition about kind of the trajectory of a human lifespan and patterns of spiritual regeneration. And on the one hand, the kind of lack of language for talking about women and later in life, perimenopause and menopause in that narrative, because it's mapped on the life of Christ, who was a man who died at 33. And how do we find our story as women later in life in that story if it's supposed to be this kind of parallel arc? So I've been thinking a lot about that question of perimenopause and regeneration and where we find ourselves in these stories that we tell about our spiritual trajectory.
I definitely identify with that. I haven't always thought about it in terms of menopause, but I definitely think about it in terms of the descending arc of life, knowing that you definitely have fewer years in the future than you had in the past. And it does feel personally, in my own experience, there's a shift that happens. There's a shift that happens, I think, in maybe how we set our priorities. Or what are the shifts that you're feeling as you approach your 50th birthday?
Definitely the word shift, but even more the word chaos is what it feels like. It really feels like physically, emotionally, spiritually, at every level, there's just a lot of upheaval and confusion. You know, there's so much we don't understand about what happens to the body for people experiencing menopause. And there's this like reaction to that fact that the medical, there's this narrative now in our world that the medical institutions, doctors and their studies have basically just begun to scratch the surface and don't really know how to address the symptoms that women experience. But there's this backlash to that of like, and it comes in the form of intense marketing to women. Your doctors aren't listening to you. Come sign up for our app or come listen to our therapist.
This new supplement. Yeah.
New supplement, this, face creams. Oh my gosh. The products that are trying to listen to women, because the doctors won't listen. We're going to listen if you'll just spend your money here in our little pocket of the internet or whatever. So it's a very confusing thing. And like, there's really a lot going on all of these levels.
That's interesting. And I have to reflect back to you. It's so interesting for you to express chaos because, I mean, you're a beautiful woman. You're very put together. You're sitting in your office. You're at the height of your career. Like, I definitely don't perceive you as someone who is in
if you
chaos.
Could just see inside this brain.
So it's definitely an internal, but I think that makes sense. I mean, I was very chaotic at 20 and you could see it. It was obvious, but there's something about this phase of life where actually you do have some sense of yourself. You do have some place that you are in the world. And maybe that makes room for like a different kind of chaos.
Yeah. I don't know. We were sort of sharing before we hit record, but that for some reason that I can't remember or don't really understand, I've always had a fascination with women in their 50s and 60s. I always have. And you talk to my friends, like I've always talked about this was going to be my time. I've always had this idea that when I hit 50, my life would finally get started. And I don't know if that's just because I had really great role models and my mom and her sisters. She had 3 sisters who were really part of my formation of what it means to be a woman and their mother, my grandmother. And in my mind, my mother's just always been in her 50s. She's still, she's in her late 70s now, but in my mind, she's still in her 50s. Like, my mom's just always in her 50s. So that must have been like a really formative time for me when I was a teenager or something. So on the one hand, I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And I know that's not always true. And I've been really grateful that this is an exciting prospect to me to be in my 50s. My kids will laugh because I'm always talking about my power decade is coming up, and I got my first tattoo to celebrate my power decade coming, and I'm really making an effort to celebrate this shift. So yeah, on the one hand, there's all this, I have a lot of positivity around it. On the other hand, it is really bumpy. It's getting really bumpy when your hormones are going wacky, and the lifespan of my family and my house, got these teenagers, and what's going to happen to them in the next few years is very anxiety inducing. So there's a lot of chaos. It feels like a lot of uncertainty. I have a sense that this could be a really powerful time of growth, but I don't have a specific idea of what that will look like.
That sounds like spiritual growth to me. I mean, that's the whole, we only can, everything has to be broken up before it can be reordered. So, I mean, chaos is such a common experience when we're growing. And I totally relate to your tension in that. Like, but couldn't it be less chaotic? Like, couldn't it be, not knowing where we're headed is a hard place to be in that. Is there anything that's helping you in this time of chaos and transition? Are there things that are grounding you? Are there things that are giving you confidence?
Well, I will say that having this idea that, again, I don't know where it came from, but that this would be a really important time, I had the sense that I need to get healthy, mentally healthy. I need to get well. I need to take care of, I've spent the last few decades of my life really taking care of my children and their health. And now I need to really prioritize. I need to be healthy if I'm going to move into this next phase of my life in a way that's what I imagine it could be. So yeah, therapy, I would say, is what's keeping me grounded.
Yeah.
Great therapist. Yeah, just really trying to get sorted out in my head and get support around what's going on in my head, my thought patterns that I've been wrestling with my whole life. And now do I really, recognizing where the thought patterns haven't always served me. And this is a really good time to confront them and learn about them and learn about my thoughts and where they're producing anxiety, where there doesn't need to be anxiety. And so I guess that's one way I'm trying to get grounded, just trying to get healthy.
We all need a team. I think that becomes even more true when we're in our 50s. Yeah. And it is this time. You think about Jesus. Yeah, he died at 33. So many people have had these short lifespans. We might have another 40 years ahead of us. We don't know. And it does feel like this incredible opportunity to become a whole new people, and be freed with this sort of deeper awareness of our thought patterns or the things that maybe are keeping us stuck. And it does feel like that is a big. Do you see that as a part of the regenerative journey that you teach about as a professor, as a Swedenborgian?
Yeah, and I don't want to limit this to like women experiencing menopause, or I think, and people can experience menopause at all different ages, right, for different reasons. But if I think about what this time of life might be in the arc of a spiritual journey of regeneration, of new life, what is that? What is this time about? Women do have this second life after fertility ends that men don't have. And what's that about? What is that about evolutionarily speaking? Why has it been important to the species to have women past their childbearing years around? There's something really important there to the survival of the race of humans that this happens. But what is it? If I think about again, like, what was it that I was admiring in older women when I was younger? And it's definitely this, to think about how to frame it. There's this wonderful social media phenomenon, the We Do Not Care Club.
Sure.
Puzzle women. That's part of it. It's this energy of like, it's not that we don't care. It's not a kind of apathy, but it's a like, there are more important things than the unimportant things, right? The unimportant things can't matter anymore, right? Yeah. My appearing to you as agreeable or affectionate or gentle or what, it just doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the work, right? What matters is like the important stuff. So there's this total flipping of priorities maybe. And that's what I'm excited about is coming into a space where we can know what's actually important, where to actually put energy in.
Yeah. Here. I'm for that. And I've certainly noticed in myself as I've come closer to the 50 mark. Yeah, the things that I think my self-consciousness really has diminished. In your 20s, it's just like, will I be chosen? Will I find a mate? Will I be able to have, there's so many things you're trying to acquire, and this question of worthiness, am I worthy to get it? Will I do the right thing? And once you get into this stage, it's like, meh, who am I trying to prove anymore? And after raising children, you've put all this effort, you've seen what you can do and what you can accomplish. And now there's this new phase of what am I going to birth into the world, or what can I be? And it's very, very potent. I've seen memes where it's like, grandmothers are we're the ones who are going to change the world. It is the women who know it's not important, but also know what is important. And I think after raising children, for me, that definitely has helped me to know what like really matters. What's helped you to kind of ground into what really matters to you?
I don't know. I find myself wanting to be, and maybe this is a common experience, more grounded in nature than ever before. I find that the older I get, the more my idea of God and what God is kind of comes closer to the earth. So the experience of divinity is more in the like waterfall down the street from me, or the sunsets and the natural world, the kind of still small voice there in nature. But not just there. I think one resource that you and I both are excited about in our tradition is Helen Keller as a spiritual guide, as a role model, as a saint. Sometimes we call her Saint Helen, because she did live into old age, and a lot of her most productive writing and self-expression came in her 50s and 60s. We have this wonderful book that I know you also read very closely. Let Us Have Faith. Let Us Have Faith, which she wrote when she was 60.
I think so.
And so it's full of this wisdom. It's full of this notions about our potential, but also our need for rest. It's not just, she did have a kind of ambitious lifestyle, obviously, but also had deep understanding of the need for rest and pacing. So maybe I'll just read a little bit, if that's okay, of inspiration from Helen Keller at the age of 60 here. And it's about her idea of what faith is. I love this. Towards the end, she writes, "Another of faith's changeable garments of glory is curiosity, searching out hidden personal resources. It is bound up in our very natures, and disobedience to it is unhuman and disintegrating. Turning the eye of aspiration inward and finding undreamed courage and beauty and generosity is a binding up of jarred faculties and bruised sensibilities. Granting that it is slow work, one day at a time, thought by thought, it remains momentous as the laying of plank by plank, stone upon stone, in a noble building. And there shall be no end to our central joy when once we ascend to the stratosphere of our richer abilities. But let us remember that the self-help within us is a vital power known as yet to comparatively few. We shall retain it on a sternly narrow condition, that we examine this power and broadcast it to others. It is a gift that can never fully be bestowed. It is a seed which has taken incalculable preparation to harrow in, and which can be catastrophically lost unless it is faithfully waited upon to its maturity. Faith, then, is the responsibility for us as well as a privilege.
Beautiful. So maybe the second half of life is a time to really just give our attention to that self-help within. Do you find yourself rooting in there? I know I certainly do. I wonder sometimes as women, and maybe this has always been true and it's maybe more true now, not only are we engaged in raising kids and all kinds of other things, but we're, we want to be pretty, or we want to be, there's all of these, and we want to do what's right. So we're often looking outside of ourselves for our bearing, whether it's getting an academic degree or finding, standing in a professional setting. And that's so much first half of life work. And it does feel like second half of life work is like looking inside, coming back to that inner fount of knowing. Has that been a bit of
Yes,
your
and I don't
experience?
know, I have to talk to more men, but I feel like as women, so much of how other people relate to us when we're younger is about our appearance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So much of just the dynamic, the exchange between people is about how we appear. Yeah, the hope that in this phase that will be less of a determining factor of how my relationships go. It's also really scary, to see my face changing the way it's changing is sort of scary, and I can see why people are so easily marketed to with products that are going to like make this go away, these wrinkles and these sagging, parts. But yeah, there's something really potentially very interesting about that's no longer the determining factor of how I interact with the world.
It's a real choice. And certainly a lot of people in our culture choose to just keep, buying more products and doing more things to try to keep this going as long as possible. And I don't fault them, and maybe you can do that and still be doing inner, inquiry too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And it does feel like there is this opportunity to start to, we only have so much time in the day, right? You can only give your attention to so many things. And in some level, they keep accumulating as you age, right? You have more and more responsibilities. And so at this, maybe that's the chaos. It's like, but so now the moment is, well, what can I lay down? Maybe that's the I don't care anymore. You got to start laying something down or you'll just implode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, it's like priorities. Your energy becomes more precious. And so you're more discerning about where you're going to put it. The other thing that I have learned from Helen Keller, this was not a concept that I don't think I had already, but if you asked her favorite Bible quote, it's a strange one. It's a weird one. It's from Mark 4:28. The earth, and this was the translation that she would be reading in, the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself. First the blade, then the ear. After that, the full corn in the ear. Why is that her favorite Bible quote? It's a weird one, right? But I think if you understand this about her, you understand everything that she writes and everything that she does. And in Swedenborgian terms, we would talk about it as discrete degrees, that we have these major, or we have the potential for kind of leaps in growth, that we kind of plod along in a continuous way in our life, but there are moments of potential for skipping a level or kind of a jump in your spiritual life, whatnot. So that if we look at a plant, we see this modeled in the ways that a plant grows, first with the stem and then with the, what do they call them? Cuddle, the two leaves that come out first, cotyledon or something. And then, these discrete degrees where a totally different form arrives. And she looked at her life and saw moments in her life as doing this, where she was suddenly born into a new way of being in the world. And you talk about her spiritual birthday as the day when she and Annie had this remarkable discovery of language together, but that she believed in the potential of every human to have moments of this in their life, and that she believed in the potential of the human race as a whole for major evolutionary leaps. And this really comes out in the Let Us Have Faith, that she thought that humanity in general was on the precipice of a major growth spurt. I don't know if she would look back on it and and agree that that was happening. But this faith in major growth. So just thinking about that as one way of modeling menopause, of this phase of life, a potential for something totally new, some new form to sprout that we can't even imagine, that will be a total surprise.
And to be open to that, I'm very moved by. I preached a sermon on that quote because I learned about that, and I like what you're bringing to it. These big leaps that are possible. I think when I read it, I was thinking more in terms of that faith that God is doing it. I find a lot very comfort in. Sometimes we like to think we're totally in charge of our growth journey and we can sort of micromanage it. But like the plant world, we are being grown by God, just like the plants. And sometimes that growth includes these big shifts from one form to another form. And I agree. I think that's partly what made Helen so amazing, is she had these going from seeing to then being blind and deaf to then learning language. She had these experiences of really shifting her experience of the world, and saw it as a great adventure and a great journey.
Right.
I definitely want to take that spirit of adventure into, and I feel like the world needs that. We need that spirit of adventure, because there is a desire sometimes to be very complacent, that we are this thing and we'll just always be this thing. Or I just did a retreat recently with this 90-year-old woman. It's like, the world's always been a mess and it always will be. And
Yes.
I sort of leaned on Helen, like, maybe we really could change, and I really see that in our Swedenborgian faith, that there's this promise of a new era, of a new church, and menopause is the promise of a new phase of life. But to be made new is scary. Do you think there have been times in your life when you've been made new already?
I'd say there were definitely times of major shift in some deep place. I'd say that when I started grad school, there was a major shift in how I thought of myself, how I moved in the world. Swedenborg talks about kind of these moments when the spirits that are accompanying you in your life kind of have a change of guard.
Interesting.
And that's how I think about those, or I think about that time in my life. Like, there was just a change of guard happening. There's a song that you sing, that Jews will sing on the Sabbath, on Friday night, as you're welcoming Shabbat in. There's a special song that's always sung, and it's to say goodbye to the weekday angels and to welcome in the Shabbat angels. There's a change of guard there in the mode of Shabbat, that your angels are different. It's a different group of angels that are with you during Shabbat. And so I think about these shifts in our life as you're just maybe in a different kind of company. I like thinking about that on a metaphysical level, like, who's with you now? And we are kind of accompanied, as we progress in our life, we're accompanied more and more by people who are on the other side, my grandmother and my mother-in-law.
So new people joining the team, but then also a sense of the team that had been with you departing. Was there any sadness when you think of that phase of life, or was it sort of just you were? I definitely feel like some phases of my life, I'm just ready for the new thing. Like, there is no part of me that is longing to stay anywhere. And maybe when we're younger too, maybe that's more the case, because I was more ready to just sort of jump from one thing to the next. Now there's a little more melancholy. I don't know, maybe that we pick up with
Nostalgia.
age.
Yeah, I heard a great interview with Weird Al Yankovic, of all people. Oh my gosh, if you can find this interview, it's so beautiful. And he's talking about parenthood and nostalgia, and how this phenomenon that we're now all so familiar with as parents, where suddenly your phone will just shoot up in front of you a picture of your child as a toddler, or their most adorable moment on, like, Christmas Eve or whatever from 10 years ago. Like, all of a sudden you're confronted with this memory randomly throughout your day, and what that does to your psyche. Like, it can be really rough. And he was describing the kind of grief, an experience of grief, of like seeing this past life and your children are really cute, and it can bring a kind of sadness. But he also then said some really beautiful things about learning to, love your children in their present stage, even if it's not so cute. Like, there's still a lot of beauty in their present stage, and not to be so distracted by this kind of looking back in the past. I thought that was so brilliant, because we are all being, like, bombarded with the best moments from our past in social media and Google Photos or whatever you've got going.
Yeah. It's all very accessible and more opportunities to give our attention to something else than what is right here, right now.
Exactly. In the present moment, the beauty of the present moment, even if it's messy and chaotic and confusing. And it was really like what the picture doesn't show you, what the Google photo doesn't show you, is how you were on 3 hours of sleep and you were really annoyed at your spouse and your kid wasn't eating the food that you spent 2 hours cooking for them.
Exactly. My grandfather used to always say, your kids always look so happy. And I'm like, we don't take pictures of them when they're yelling. Of course they look happy. Yes. Yeah. And our memories weed out so much. So we tend to kind of hold on to certain pieces and let go of others. And then the pictures add even more to that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's something we can see. We can see the past. We can see the pictures of the past. The future, we can't see in the same way. We can't. And we're hoping for different things. You know, I don't know if you hoped for a family at some point, but when you're younger, there's certain tangible things sometimes that you hope for. When you look to the future, do you have certain hopes or things that have an image or a picture in your mind?
I mean, I think part of the kind of thought pattern that I'm working with, that I'm trying to address, is my anxiety about the future, and especially about my children and their future. And it's what a crazy world it is right now for kids growing up, and what our job's going to look like and what our relationship's going to look like. And there's a lot to be very anxious about in the future, and how to shift. This is what I really struggle with, is like how to shift from anxiety about the future to whatever the alternative is. Someone at our church a couple weeks ago brought a wonderfully constructed list of how to survive our present political turmoil. It's a great list of like, be grounded in nature, be open to ways that you can help. Anyway, it's a really good list, but the one that I always remember is be open to being, that know that you're going to be surprised. There's, as good as your anxiety about the future, as honed as you might be and worrying about the future, you actually don't know. And there will be surprises. So being open, curious, and as healthy as you can be to meet those surprises when they come. But no, I have a fraught relationship with the future.
Sure. I think a lot of us do on the planet. My husband just preached on Sunday, and I watch it on YouTube from home because my kids don't like to go to church anymore. So that's one of the things we're holding in our family. And at the end of it, he made some comment of just like, yeah, I have a 9 and 11-year-old, and Schoolhouse Rock did not set me up for this. I was not ready to raise children in this era, with this reality that we're all living in. And I think I love your, our brains can only process what we have experienced before. That's my takeaway for anxiety, is like, as much as this may seem reasonable, it's only processing old ideas, and it doesn't know how we might be surprised. It doesn't know what possibilities we can't yet imagine. And you are not the only one worrying about your children's future or wondering how they're going to get by. We all are, and all of those kids are going to have to figure it out, together, and build new possibilities. I feel like I'm 50-50 all the time, like total despair to like total hope. And I do my best just to sort of stay on that ledge in between, because it is such a fraught time. And like menopause, full of emotion, or like any major moment when possible change can occur, there's the possibility of good things emerging too.
Yeah. Here's the quote from Swedenborg that you were referencing earlier. Okay. Before being reduced to order, it is very common for everything to fall into confusion or chaos. This allows things that cling together poorly to separate. And when they have separated, the Lord arranges them in their place. Nature offers parallels, since in it too, each and everything first falls into some degree of disorder before being put in order. If the skies did not storm, causing unlike elements to scatter, the air would never clear. Destructive forces would amass and wreak havoc. Yeah, I mean, that's really a gift, is this idea of chaos and confusion. This, in the biblical Hebrew, tohu vavohu, the kind of chaos and confusion of creation, isn't a sign that you've messed up, isn't a sign that your life was failure. It's not a sign that, you've screwed things up beyond repair. Actually, it's a sign that there's going to be growth.
Yeah. As you say that, I hear you sort of speaking it to yourself. Is that something you sometimes? Yeah. I do the same thing. Yeah. It's so tempting to think it is failure and it's loss and it's the end. And it does feel like that is one of the gems of, if the Lord, if we were given the Bible, we've given this to know something we need to know. That feels like one of those things we need to know.
Yes.
We need to know that, that all is not lost. Ted and I are doing this podcast on Revelation. So last week, it was, it's all, it's so messy. It's so messy. And yet the mess is necessary because there's a clearing away. There's the storm. There's something that needs to break down, that is holding back this new life that we're being called into. And it's so central to our faith, right? New life. We cheer it on. We want new life. But then when it kind of comes down to the work of it, we sort of always wish it would be a little easier.
It's messy.
Gentle. It is messy.
Yeah. I've been really enjoying that podcast. And I think I just remembered, I'd heard this line recently. I couldn't remember where I heard it, but it might have been from you in that podcast. Does this sound familiar? That we're not here to win, we're here to have balance. Is that from you?
I think that might have been Ted's words. Yeah, we're not here to win. We're here to grow and have balance. Yeah. And so much of the negative images of Revelation of the evil is this desire to win. We want to grow the best, arrive. Really, we're here to be kind of, find our balance. Are you finding balance at all in the chaos? Can you have balance and chaos at the same time?
Some days are better. Yeah, some days are better than others. Yeah, so many factors, But yeah, I think I do find there are moments of feeling a little more grounded. And when things get extra confusing and chaotic, it can feel like I just need to give up. I just need to, I don't know, go hide for a few days somewhere or something. Sure. But that doesn't work. But that continuing to show up for my life, continuing to get up at 6 and get everybody organized, and continuing to do my job, and that does bring balance. It does ultimately, continuing to show up for my life, even if it's a messy day, even if things don't go to plan, like that, in the end, is what grounds me.
Is that also how love calls you? Does love call you to show up? Is love calling you in other ways?
Yeah. I mean, I think I love to teach. Teaching is, I'm very lucky that I get to teach, and it brings me a lot of sense. I think having developed myself as a teacher, I think brings a sense that I learned how to do something. There's something I've learned how to do. And that's the thing. Yeah. If I can show up and do that thing and be a good teacher, then I'm participating in love, participating in all of it. And it's interesting because I come from a long line of teachers. Everyone I'm related to is a teacher. My siblings, parents, spouse. So I keep telling my kids, sorry.
This is probably gonna be how you find your way. Yeah. It's interesting. Teaching is not something I have ever felt very good at, and I've always felt very anxious about it. It's definitely not my path. What is it you love about teaching? What is it that you enjoy in that experience, or that position of leadership?
When everything's going well in a room of learners, people are connecting to each other in ways, again, maybe that are surprising, in ways I didn't expect. And they're discovering things about each other and about themselves through these ideas that we're tossing around the room. It is a way of creating the conditions for connection. And I do think I'm somebody who really does think that ideas matter. And the way we learn about history and philosophy, and these things are our vehicles for connecting and for growth. And so when everything's going well, that's what's happening, is growth and connection. When things aren't going well, that's not happening.
Sure. But
Yeah.
that's the experience that is satisfying to you and that
Yeah.
you're seeking to create connection between ideas and between people. And yeah.
And making spaces for people to feel comfortable experimenting with ideas. We live in a world where you've got to be right.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be on the right side of whatever side you're on, and whatever side you're on has a certain standard of purity of thought, right? And so making space where people can experiment with different ideas. Yeah, where people feel safe to experiment, to try on new ideas, to try them back off again, change their mind is something we need. We need spaces where ideas aren't so scary.
Yeah. What have you found that helps people to feel safe to experiment? Is there any?
What helps people to feel safe to experiment is seeing the good in what they're saying. I might disagree with something a student says, but if I can pull out something in it that I resonate with, or some aspect of it that I see in a positive light, then they're like, oh yeah, like people feel validated. And also, yeah, it can create, and then if you model that well, people do that with each other and start seeing the best in each other and what they're trying to say, rather than see the worst or see what they're saying in the worst possible light, which we're really well trained to do in our public discourse today. We're very well honed. We know how to see the worst in what someone else is saying.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that almost. It's harder to pause and try and see the good.
Yeah. I totally agree. So it's something we need to be intentional about. So we need to learn how to do it. And it seems like there's a little parallel between that too and our anxiety brain, because that's what our anxiety brain does, right? It finds all the problems and all the things that are going to go wrong. And it's like we're evolutionarily developed to do that, to see that in ourselves and to see it in others. We haven't really evolved to look for the good. It's almost like that is it's something we have to choose to want to do almost, and then develop skills.
Yeah, and that's not anti-critical thinking. I'm all about critical thinking, and spaces where there's no critical thinking are very uncomfortable, I think. So developing the ability to be, but critical thinking is part of that, is being able to see different sides of something and not just accept something at face value. So yeah, I'd say there needs to be both an openness and a charitableness of seeing the good in what someone's saying, but also holding on to the best of what critical thinking can provide us.
Do you find when you're able to create a space where people are looking for the good, then there also is room for people to disagree or voice criticism? Yeah.
Yes, that's the dream, is for all of that to be in play, for there to be able to be disagreement without it being personal attack or.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Yeah, we're not very good at this in our. You read kind of our works from past generations, and there were certain things that we've forgotten how to do. Civil discourse.
So you think people used to be able to do it better and it's gotten worse?
Sometimes, maybe.
I wonder about that. I don't know. Someone would have to study it for me, but
yeah,
I think I'm thinking specifically about our Swedenborgian community. I know I've heard lots of stories of big fights and lots of personalities. I don't know that we've necessarily gotten better at it, though. It seems like sometimes we then veer on the side of not talking about things. So yeah, how can we move into that space of really engaging, but with more humanity? And maybe we're not better at it yet, but maybe we're at least aware that we're not good at it, which I think is a very important step in the process of getting better, to just acknowledge that it's really hard. When maybe in the past we might have just believed it should be easy. And if it wasn't easy, then it was that guy's fault,
Yeah, or there were certain hierarchies of voices that were given more authority and
keeping things civil
deferred to, right, whereas that's less the case. It was, at least in our branch of our denomination. There's been a resistance to that kind of hierarchy and authority, and so that brings its own kind of chaos. But it's one that we've chosen, right? This is how we'd rather have the chaos of everyone's voice counts than the order of a single authoritative figure. But yeah, I think I agree with you. We have a long way to go in learning how to do this well.
I sometimes think about this time we're living in and all the challenges that we're facing. And when I think of the future, I think of some future generation looking back and just like going, what were they thinking? Like, why did they give their children iPads? Why did they eat sugar cereal? Why was all of this stuff available? And yet I look back to now, I'm like, and I know we're doing the best we can. Like in these circumstances with these, resources available to us, we're doing the best we can. And there is no perfect path through this mess of a moment. There definitely isn't. All I can hope for is we're finding some path, and some next phase will come that will have new opportunities. It's a hard moment. It's a chaotic moment.
Maybe the whole planet is going through menopause.
Maybe the whole planet is going through menopause. That would be a positive way to think about it.
It's all just a hormone shift.
And something's coming back.
Empowered and strong and
yeah. Well, I'm glad you're showing up to work, Rebecca, and doing your thing and finding your way to walk through this time. And again, the chaos is not visible from the outside at all. You're doing great work in the world as a teacher and as the leader of our school. And I pray that you have what you need to step through it. Do you have any last reflections on this moment for us, or this moment for you?
Maybe just returning to if there's anything this moment is showing me, it's the importance of health, of being healthy and taking care of one's health. And that's a universal thing, just encouraging one another to be healthy, whatever that looks like, finding a therapist, finding the right doctor, without just resorting to everybody who's trying to sell us our health, right? Like there are healthy ways to get healthy and to support each other in finding those resources and taking the steps. It can be hard to pick up the phone and make that appointment, really, and incredibly. I don't know why that's so hard. Why is it so hard to make that appointment? But if there's one thing I could have all my people in my orbit do, it would be pick up the phone and make that appointment. Do the next thing that you need to do to be healthy. Because I'm finding that now that I've made that a project for myself, that it's been a really good thing.
Well, and there's such a pattern of sort of self-abandonment that is very common on our planet and in our species. And when you're 50, you can't do that anymore. You can't just because you feel it more. You can kind of abandon yourself when you're younger, but at this point, that shifts. And I'm thinking of Helen's words that you shared with us. And that self-help too. So there's the picking up the phone for help, and then also recognizing that, we actually may very well know what we need and know what calls to make and who to reach out to if we really take ourselves seriously and take our life seriously. Yeah. Well, blessings in the chaos.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing, Sage. I'm just really an admirer and an appreciator of all the incredible ways that you're moving in the world and trying to find a path forward that looks a little different than the paths that have been laid before us.
I appreciate that. I think
we need some new paths.
We need some new paths. And I think a lot of what I'm doing is trying to find ways for us to be together in the chaos, honestly, and find some peace in this time of change. So thanks for being in it with me.
And thank you so much.
When we both are